Did you know that your bank can quietly deny your renewal mortgage even if you haven't missed a single payment? Talk to your bank, evaluate, check out other banks, check out lender B's, check out private. But the first thing that people say is, look man, I don't want to go to the lender B because they will gonna charge me higher rate. And you know what? I don't want to go to private because that's even worse. I'm not stupid. Fair point. But let me ask you a question. What if your bank that you're with now, the major bank, right, doesn't qualify you for the next term? What are you going to do? A lot of Canadians will find out in 2025 and 2026 when they renew their mortgage. Some of you probably had that experience already, but that trickles into more stress towards real estate and more chaos in our market. So we will dive into a couple of things. We will also dive into possibilities how you could probably save yourself, maybe not fix the problem completely, but maybe put a patch for the meantime on this renewal system and what has been going on. So stay tuned and let's get right into the video. So guys, isn't it completely crazy, right? Like you have a mortgage, you've been paying it, you locked it in for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, long term, whatever, you're thinking properly, you did all the things right. You wanted to buy a house, you wanted to protect your family, you simply wanted the roof over your head. But it's not going to be as simple as it used to be. Do you remember back in the day, if you had a mortgage with a bank institutions, they would just kind of roll it in to the next term, whatever you qualify for or you perhaps choose, and then you would be kind of safe. You would kind of roll into your next agreement with minor tweaks and everybody's happy. You keep your mortgage, whether the rates go up or down, and you just deal with these minor consequences and you move on. But the landscape changed completely. And as you're watching this video, the banks are definitely preparing, right? Whether it's your application or my application or somebody else's application, how they cannot approve it, how they will deny it. What will they do not to approve the next cycle of your mortgage? So let's dive into it. So the silent shift. Banks aren't automatically renewing mortgages anymore. Isn't that crazy? Even clients with perfect payment history are getting flagged. Why is that? Well, rates are jumped from 1 or 2% back in the day, pandemic lows, to 4 to 5% higher. Lenders are stress testing borrowers at today's risk levels, not yesterday's. So let's rewind a little bit. Back in the day, I'm not saying it's you, but I'm just saying overall, the industry tend to have that mindset. Like, look, if a bank doesn't want me, I'll figure out some paperwork and I'll make sure it will be pushed through and I will get that particular mortgage. And usually it's a huge lump sum mortgage, $500,000, 1 million, 2 million. A lot of people went out to lunch and they were buying these properties like mushrooms, thinking they're gonna become the next, I don't know, entrepreneur, billionaire, whatever. Fine, your decision. However, now things are changing because the system is being more linked, and I'll get into that, right? The CRA is connected and your pay stubs and all of that stuff. I heard stories that back in the day, some people would kind of adjust some of this paperwork and a lot of people were fined with that process, right? Because it's absolutely illegal to do so, right? But now, let's say people got away with it, right? Now on the renewals, right? They have to come up with the proper paperwork to sustain themselves with the next mortgage term. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't even want to think about that. There's gonna be tens of thousands of these mortgages that are gonna default overnight, and we're gonna wonder and ask, what is happening all of a sudden? Why is the bank being at fault here? They don't want to renew. Yada, yada, yada. Well, in the first place, how did you get your mortgage in the first place? What kind of cards you played in the first place to get approved, right? To ride that particular term, on what circumstances, and what is happening today? How can you back it up? Like, those are all the questions that people will have to go through. So let's move forward. How banks are tightening. Pulling the last CRA tax assessments for all renewals. Checking for pandemic supports. Think about that. CERB, CEBA, income dips, and everything that was happening in the past, they will have to go back and they will have to analyze it. Now, if you borrowed the CERB, right, you have to pay back. Like, people didn't realize that, right? Like, during the pandemic, I remember talking to many and they're like, hey, you know what? You just call in and you just say you're in trouble and they send you a check, whether it's 5,000 or 50,000, depending on the size of the business. Are you kidding me? I'm like, wow, that's incredible. However, what's the small print says? Well, I don't care. As long as I get the money, like, we're in troubling times. I understand. Read the fine print, because you have to pay it back. Nobody gives you an X amount of dollars or supplement or whatever, right? Without you either paying it back at an X time or paying it back on an X term time plus interest. Think about that for a second. Especially huge institutions, right? So they're not in it to lose the money, right? So many people that I know, and I know one particular case, they went out and they started buying some stuff that was irrelevant to their business. I mean, it was their choice. They had to somehow talk to the CRA and kind of deal with all that paperwork back and forth. But this is what I'm saying. Like, some people use maybe and abuse the system for wrong reasons. But now things are changing. And let's say some of these examples are those examples, right? And they're individual cases. But guys, each individual case will affect you today, all of us as a whole. You will be affected, because if that guy, your neighbor, that man or woman in your block or community goes under, goes bankrupt, sells at a discount, guess what? Your house is next. Maybe not in terms of bankruptcy, but in terms of that adjusted list price or market value. That's what's going to happen. There's no way around that. The same way applies when the markets are going up. The next sale determines the next market value and the price. Same thing when the prices are feathering or falling down. Same systems apply. That's just the reality. All right, so what does it mean for the homeowners? Renewing at higher rates changes your entire debt to income picture. More household could lose qualification or be pushed to private B lenders. Even good borrowers can get trapped if they ignore documentation deadlines. Equity is eroding just as borrowing costs spike. Exactly. So we're now in that pivoting point. We have been for a long time, but people were grabbing for that straw of hope that the market will hit. It has to. Otherwise, everybody will go under. Well, the market is not getting back, so everybody will go under. That was the second statement of the entire statement, right? So the banks, all they have to do is change the policy, what they're doing, tighten up the actual documentation criteria and the process criteria, and there you go, right? Now you have to show up with more documentation. You have to make sure you have the right and up-to-date documentation, and on top of that, you have to make sure that your income right, from CRA documents support the actual debt or your mortgage or line of credits and everything that you have accumulated along the way, right? So those are huge, huge indicators and huge problems. On top of that, adding that, equity has been melting like a beautiful vanilla ice cream in a sunny day. It's just melting away from that cone, right? So now, when you're left with an empty cone, like that's it. Like there's no more ice cream. There's no more ways for you to actually go in and figure out a way how you can implement your next debt cycle, right? So it is what it is, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like these are the times where I believe that 2025 is that breaking year. 2026 is going to be worse than 2025, and who knows, and I would like to add that, who knows what will happen to our economy. Well, economists that are actually crunching these numbers, looking from a wide and a narrow lens, they know, if they're honest with you or me or us, they know that we're going through hard times, right? So when you combine all of it together, like guys, buckle up. This is gonna get hard and is gonna get rocky very, very, very fast. So what can you do now, and what is the actual fix? I personally believe that there are no one application fixes. Take this band-aid and that's it. Your problems are solved, because each individual goes through their own issues, problems. They have a specific account and a history based what they have done, and then obviously the remedy is different for everybody. But what you could do, 6 months before expiry, start the renewal process early, right? So talk to your bank, evaluate, check out other banks, check out lender B's, check out private, check out so many other sources, unions and whatnot, right? But the first thing that people say is, look, man, I don't want to go to the lender B because they will gonna charge me higher rate. And you know what? I don't want to go to private because that's even worse. I'm not stupid. Fair point. But let me ask you a question. What if your bank that you're with now, the major bank, right, doesn't qualify you for the next term? What are you going to do? Two options. You're going to sell by force because you're going to have to, or you're going to go to lender B or private lending. That's it. So if you cannot afford neither of these options, then you know that house is too expensive and you have to pivot, you have to shift. Nobody's here to save you, right? So let's move. Pull your CRA documents. Make sure your income matches what banks will see. Very important. The banks are adjusting their numbers, their policies, their calculators based on one thing, your numbers. It's very simple. Debt ratio, how much you owe for certain things. They have ratios for everything, and for on top of these ratios, they have other ratios, and those ratios have different ratios that back up the first ratio. So what I'm saying, if they don't match up from the beginning to the end, you are not going to be approved for your next mortgage cycle. As simple as that. Check your credit report. Fix errors before renewal. Very important. Equifax. If you have not dived in it, like you might say, hey, look, my credit score looks great. I know because I haven't missed anything. You might be right, but maybe you missed something else, like a phone payment, like internet payment, something along the way that you thought it's not a big deal at all, or a subscription that you completely forgot about, right? And it's kind of dragging on your Equifax. And now when you log in to your Equifax, you realize that you maybe went from an 820 to a 675 overnight. And it's a stupid or some minor glitch on your file, but it keeps eating your points on daily basis. So make sure when your bank checks you, and they will do it, you are squared. You know exactly what they're looking at. Very, very important. Calculate your budget at higher rates. Know what you can truly afford. Well, that's something that most of people still don't know how to do today. Well, I'm going to explain it to you very simply. Okay, your income is on this side. Your output or your expenses are on this side. If this side doesn't match this side, you have a problem. Very simple. So to put it into numbers, you earn $10,000 a month, your household income, net, not gross. You can make $10 million gross a month. Doesn't mean anything. At zero, it means nothing. What can you take home after taxes and everything else? So let's just assume it's $10,000 net family income. If this income here, the output, the expenses are $12,000, you're negative $2,000. Very simple. Too expensive. You cannot afford it. Find a different way. Sell it. Try to shave some of these expenses. Very simple math, right? So don't complicate it. The banks don't complicate it. You just look at your stuff and say you're not approved. Very simple. So make sure you do that. I know I'm being sarcastic here, but that's truly what it is. It's very simple, right? Shop around credit unions, B lenders, private lenders, and bridge gaps, right? Very, very important. You have to start diving into these possibilities of what if. Don't wait. The longer you wait, the fewer options you will have. I've seen it over and over and over again, and it usually was happening, the week of closing, or 3 days before closing, or 24 hours before closing. And then these mortgage brokers are freaking out, losing hair, right? Like, it's nuts, right? Why would you bring yourself to that particular situation, or in that unsolvable situation? And then we got to run the cycle, extensions, amendments, and all of that stuff. And then the bank doesn't want to be pressured. Think about that. The bank owns your money. They don't care. They got time. To them, doesn't matter. 1 week, 3 months, 4 years, doesn't matter. They got time. And they will take their time, right? Because they have to make sure that you can actually pay their interest rate. Well, that the payment. They have to analyze you and say, hey, this person can or cannot. And they'll take their sweet time to do so. Trust me. The real story of impact. So there is a story where I kind of mentioned that, like where people did not realize that some of these subscriptions that they were, I'm assuming, getting to their email, right? But it went to junk or whatever. The bank doesn't care about that, right? Because you have to police that, right? So it went to their Equifax. Their score went from 800 plus to, low 600s or mid 600s, something like that. So the bank evaluating that, they were a little bit uneasy because they said like, hey, look, something is wrong here. And all of that stuff. So then going back to the bank, I didn't miss any payments. I'm a good citizen. I work hard for this and stuff like that. The bank doesn't really care, right? As long as they feel or they can do the stress test to make sure that you can continue with your payment, that's all they care about. So make sure that you focus and you kind of contribute value to yourself first and see what they will see before you even start getting into that cycle of the bank renewal. So I hope you gain some value out of this video, and please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.